I'm Dodge Gear, your host of Accurate Hunts, A Life Outdoors, where we cover all things outdoors, not just looking at the hunting side of things, so stay tuned. I'm excited to see what happens.
There you are, cool. Welcome back to another episode of Accurate Hunts, Life Outdoors. We special guest with us tonight in person. Thanks for joining us, Nathan. Nathan from Edge of the Outback.
Thanks for having me, mate.
No worries. Thanks for coming along.
No problem. Local, so easy one.
Local tonight. I've come to you. Sort of. A little bit of travel.
Pretty close.
Close as it's going to get.
Yep.
And you just said before you don't like coming to Sydney, so
yeah.
I was kind of
I'll
snookered.
try and avoid that. Yep.
So, Edge of the Outback. What does it mean? What is it?
Oh, it's a fella that decided to do a couple of videos a few years ago on a phone. Brought a GoPro.
I saw those first videos. They're about watches.
The first ones were about watches, pocket knives.
Yeah, I saw that.
Knife sharpening.
Yep.
I wasn't bad at that for a while.
Pretty interested by the watches, actually.
Yeah, look, I like all of that stuff,
Yeah.
I guess. So, yeah, that was the beginning of it.
Did the name change? Was it Edge of the Outback?
No, it wasn't. It was just my
watches.
initials, and I think it was just my initials EDC, I think, so everyday carry.
Yeah.
So that was the watches, pocket knives, and then that was all very small sort of stuff, and then
That's a big industry in itself, the EDC stuff.
yeah, and then I just started to. I think I started to watch a little bit more YouTube of people hunting and stuff like that. So I guess it all stemmed from I did a lot of shooting and hunting, and then we had 2 kids. Didn't get out too much, so probably got into that EDC stuff a little bit, and then kids got a little bit older. I got back into it a bit more. Had been watching hunting on YouTube, so I thought, I might try and do a little bit of that.
Get back into it a bit more.
And that was probably the beginning of it. And then I changed it. I didn't know what to call the channel. Edge of the Outback was never my idea. I can't actually, the guy might listen to this that helped, but I literally put a post up. If you look way back on my Instagram of...
Give me a suggestion.
Let's incorporate something that has to do with the whole pocket knife sharpening EDC thing and hunting and outdoors, hence the Edge of the Outback.
Yeah.
And that was someone else's idea, so I never claim credit for that name.
Do you know who it was?
I can't remember his name.
Davo.
No.
Next Davo.
Was it Davo?
No, I just made it.
It could be. I honestly can't remember, but that was probably the start.
The logo, you got a big machete on there, which is obviously not what you carry around hunting.
No, not at all. No, I don't think I rarely carry a knife. But
What sort of, did you design it? Did someone design it?
No, that was just another guy in that sort of EDC thing. It was a nice guy. I still talk to him a little bit in Perth. He just does a bit of graphic design stuff and laser logos and things, and I just said, would you be able to help me with something? And I think I just had originally probably just a text thing, and I just said, can we put a deer on it? It's probably not the most Australian deer in the world.
It's not an anything deer. It's probably closest to a red stag.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, it's sort of all
it's
merged in. It's got knives and crosshairs and a deer, so I was happy with that.
You haven't always been playing with thermal sort of side of things, though. You grew up hunting?
No, I didn't, actually. My father had rifles in my early memories before 96. I had family that all came off farms and things like that, so he had a relationship with firearms through that, and he got rid of those, and I don't know, I'd just always been attracted by hunting. So I actually started as a bow hunter.
Right.
So I had an uncle that had an old, I think I've still got it at home, an old fiberglass bow. I don't even know if not literally just like this little 1 metre long thing. I don't even think I'd like to pull it back anymore. It'd probably snap, but that was the beginning of it, and I wanted to get a...
Did you shoot anything with it?
Yeah, rabbits. Yeah. Literally.
One of the harder things to shoot.
Probably within 500 metres of where I live today. We used to go out and run around.
Probably wasn't houses then.
No. So, it's still not quite houses, but nearly.
Getting there.
Right up to the border of that. So, through that, wanted to do more with the archery. And one of the caveats my parents had, well, if you want to get into it more, you've got to join a club. So that was probably the beginning of that journey. Joined the Hunter Bowman back in the day.
Yep.
And got into that. That was ABA. So shot a lot of that. A few state titles, a couple of second places at nationals. So went all right with the bow. And then...
What made you put it down?
Probably access changing more than anything. So my best friend was from Narrabri, and we used to bow hunt goats on his family farm. And his uncle managed a property out near Burren Junction, and we could bow hunt out there. And two things changed. One, there was money in live goats, so there were people that were rounding up the live goats.
Yes.
So there weren't as many for us to run around and bow hunt. And his uncle moved property, so he moved up near St George, I think it was. And that was all sort of rifle country, because it was all big open stubble paddocks and cotton and things like that. So
Not conducive to bow hunting.
no, it was just randomly one year. Went to AgQuip and there was a stall that you could do your gun licence at, and my friend obviously had his gun licence because he lived on the land, and I thought, okay, get a gun licence.
And that's where it started.
That's where it started.
Well, that's where it changed direction anyway.
Yeah, it was never allowed to have a firearm while I lived at home either. My mother said no guns in the house.
Similar story. My parents are... I'm a first generation hunter. The parents weren't into shooting and all. Dad was in the army, so he had a rifle, but to him it was a set of boots. He just got sick of cleaning it. Didn't really enjoy that side of it. But when I went out and got my firearms license, I didn't tell my parents. And we had a big shed at home. I cleared a corner out and put a safe in it. And then Dad sort of noticed that and didn't really care too much. And Mum said, you can't have guns at our place and you can't do this. And anyway, 3 weeks after I got it, she goes, quick, Dodge, there's a fox out the back, can you shoot it? So she sort of came full circle, and now she's one of my best access. She does horse riding, so she's always campaigning for access.
Yep.
Talking to a farmer, you have any deer around or anything?
Handy,
But,
yeah.
I want to circle back to the goats you've shot, and actually right here we've got one you shot in Narrabri. We call this one Fluffy.
Oh, I'd never claim that.
No, so a little bit of context for the listeners and watchers, I suppose. We commandeered a lounge room of a friend of mine, James Barbans, and he has had a successful career travelling the world and having some fun. And he's listening from the other room, so thanks for letting us use your lounge room, James, on the journey.
They probably can't see everything.
No, they can't.
But it's
Well, I'll put a photo up at some point. There's actually no walls in here; it's just skin and bone.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
left.
It's rather epic.
No, this is a mountain goat. Was this Canada or Alaska? BC, yeah. So a very nice example of a mountain goat, full body mounted. Not something you'd see in Narrabri.
No.
One benefit of full mounting things is you can show people shot placement, which is nice. So I'm not sure where this one was shot, but I'd aim just there. So you got rid of the bow, you got into some firearms, and then you're still young at this point. Was this pre-kids?
Yeah. 20, 21.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'm just trying to think how that unfolded. I just became a shooter and hunter, I guess. Yeah, I always had a little bit of private access and met some other friends.
More
through
shooter
that.
than hunter?
Yeah, initially.
Right.
Yeah, would have been. Always enjoyed stalking though, so back to that bow hunting side of it. So, but most of it was spotlighting back then. So we'd buzz around with the spotlight on the back of a ute, and I think I brought a 17 HMR and got a little bit of local access for rabbits and things like that. Did a bit of that, and then got a bit more access with deer on it, and started to do a little bit more hunting in that deer rut period.
Do you remember shooting your first deer?
I do.
Vividly?
Vividly. Yeah, red hind at area called Stewartsbrook.
Right. How did it go down?
Straight down.
A little background to that.
Yeah, not much background to that. No, it was a 90 grain Sierra hollow point out of a 270 Winchester.
You do have a good memory.
No, I still remember that. Yep. No, I think I was looking for pigs, following the creek along, and I just went up a little bit of a rise and looked down, and 3 deer sort of broke out from under where I was. I didn't even realise that there were deer there.
Hunting or spotlight?
No, hunting. Yeah, it was probably at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Yeah, didn't even realise that there were.
Did the owner know there was deer?
Yeah, they did. They did know there, but they hadn't said anything about that to me. That was probably before deer were really
A thing.
classed as a thing or a known issue or anything like
Something
that.
that was chased on purpose.
Yeah. Whereas that's all changed through a commercial space, whether it's harvesters that have got an interest in deer or hunters that have got an interest in deer. Back then, they were just an animal that was slowly moving into the area.
Yeah, expanding. What did you do with it? First one, a couple of photos and move on?
Photos? No, I got a fair bit of meat. Yeah.
Guilty of that in my early days, doing a little bit of shooting and leaving.
No, I didn't. I got a bit of meat off that one. Yeah. Yep, and then didn't see, any up there for a couple of years.
You shot the only one.
Oh, well, there were 3 there that I saw. And then it was probably 3 years later, I went up there in the rut and had a pretty good crack chasing things around and saw animals off on opposite faces and things like that. Couldn't get anywhere near them. And I had it wasn't a postie bike, it was a CT125, so it wasn't the scalloped frame.
Yeah.
With a milk crate on the back and a dolphin light on the front.
It looked like a postie bike.
It was a pretty wicked bit of kit, yeah. And that was probably the first stage into quad bikes and ATVs and stuff like that. But I was just riding that around on the last morning and pushed out a big 12-pointer off a wallow with about 10 hinds.
And this is before you knew what a wallow was, or?
I kind of knew what one, I'd read Wild Deer magazine and things like that, but...
Had some knowledge.
Pushed them off. They ran down the gully that I'd been hunting all week. Kind of frustrating. And I just thought it was all over. I think I sat down on the side of the track and just thought, oh, well, that's that done and dusted. And in walked this very young, probably a 3-year-old 8-pointer, waltzed into the wallow. We probably thought, this is great. The big one just ran away, and I'm going to go and urinate all over his mud and make it my smell. So that animal copped a 2-3 up the back of the ear. And that was the first set of antlers I got.
That's pretty cool. You still got it?
Mm?
Yeah. Did you get it mounted or just a Euro mount?
No, just a Euro mount. Yeah, or skull cap on that one.
Do you have any mounts?
No, I don't. No.
Not something that interests you? Or just space, time, money?
All of the above. Mm. Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to talk about in this room.
Yeah.
There's no space, there's lots of time, and there's a fair bit of money in this room.
Yeah.
Although a lot of these were self-guided things, so on the lower end, and state forest stuff especially too. Some impressive stuff in here.
Hugely. No, it's just never been a real space that I've looked at. I probably will one day, but
I think I
haven't yet.
I've got a half-decent trophy room, but it's mostly because I have bad memory. So, I don't remember too much detail about my first year. I sort of remember photos, not video. I don't have the recollection's a bit poor. So, and you're recounting grains on bullets that you're shooting and things.
No, so I still remember those ones. A lot of the other ones I probably don't, but
especially now in your current job, the numbers get a bit higher and harder to remember.
I still remember the deer though. Maybe not on a on a coal job. No.
Why do you think deer are a little bit more special to the memory?
I don't know. I still think I remember the first fallow that I laid eyes on, which was out near Mudgee, and that probably wasn't that long after I'd shot the red deer.
Right. And
I couldn't believe that I was in cover in the bushes, and I couldn't believe that they'd pinned me at like 250 metres. It just blew me away because I was used to goats.
Yes. And
it just floored me. I was just like, how can those things even see me? And they ran off, and I went, wow, I'm really going to have to step the game
Their
up.
eyesight's amazing.
If I want to be a deer hunter,
I
need to get better at it. So that's probably call it the challenge, I suppose.
Yep.
In some ways, whereas pigs and look, they're all their own thing to hunt, but it's a hard one to pin. Why I remember the deer more than others, but maybe because there is a trophy that you take home.
Yeah, on the trophy front, I was talking to a meat hunter the other day, and he was having a not heated conversation, but he was, oh, you only shoot for antlers, you're a trophy hunter. I said, so are you. He said, what do you mean? I said, would you shoot one that was skinny over one that was fat? He said, no. I said, well, that's selection. You're just picking the trophy of size and quality of meat.
Yep.
Oh, I never thought about it like that. But yeah, there's always something that, even if you take antlers, there's always meat to take home.
That's it. Yep.
So when did the YouTube channel kick off in that career then?
Probably.
I think started with watches, but when did the hunting side of it?
I think the first hunting video I did was in the rut in 2019.
Right.
And it was literally just a smartphone. And that stemmed... I only had this conversation with a mate that remembers the early days of, I call it contact with me. And I always used to document a shooting trip or a hunting trip. I always used to take photos and write an email. And that might have only went to 6 or 8 people. This is what we shot, 6 pigs and saw 2 deer and whatever that was, a couple of pictures. So I've always enjoyed somehow documenting the memory.
What a bit of fun email to get.
I don't know if it was or not. I used to like writing them, but
I remember, it doesn't happen now because everyone's got Facebook and everything's instant, but you always used to get a letter from an auntie at Christmas that was like, hey, our kids are doing this, and the yearly wrap-up. That's what I feel like you're hunting ones.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was only Adrian's his name. I was only talking to him last week, and I said, "You'd remember?" And he said, "Yeah, I remember the emails," and that was kind of the beginning. And I guess as technology evolved, and I got a smartphone and had a video camera, and I thought, well, I could actually
it's a game changer.
Do a bit of this. So that was kind of the start of it. I think I brought a Chinese copy GoPro thing and put on the quad, and off we went. That was probably the beginning of it. Did a few sambar hunts, which were really good fun. They were a challenge, but good fun. I enjoyed those.
Where was that?
Just, I think I went up near Hotham. Just backpacked in for a couple of days each trip. I think I did 3 trips in quite a short window, much to my wife's dismay, but I got the bug to get a sambar pretty hard.
Did you get one?
On the last trip I did, yeah. But he had, not like this one up here that you can't see, but it was a really old stag, so he had, like, they weren't even backwards. No, they weren't. They were just like nubs of like big low coronets with just these nub things on it, but massive bodied animal. So that was really good, and then I guess that kind of flowed into a little bit more shooting. Well, what would the flow on be? It's probably a hard one to describe, that little bit of a journey. I guess I got into, I think I brought a night vision add-on for a scope.
How long ago was that? Like, when did the night vision thermal world sort of evolve in Australia? Or become affordable? I don't know
about evolve, but look, for me at the time it was just about what was affordable, and I guess that's got context for everyone, but that was at the time, I might have run a $1,000 scope on a $1,000 rifle. So to spend, I think the first night vision add-on I brought that went on a scope might have been $700, and that was like, well, I'm going to buy this one little thing that goes on the back, and I think I took it out and just went,
game changer.
Oh wow, this is completely, none of this hit the fox with a spotlight and you've got to shoot it within 6 seconds.
What was it? The add-on, do you remember?
Oh, it was a Pard 007. Just goes on the back.
Yeah.
So that was that original device, and then I bought a really cheap pulsar thermal scanner, and that probably involved more for the video side of it. So I brought it to use to just do night hunting. I wasn't really doing a whole lot of footage, and the reason I upgraded from that, wouldn't take video. So by that stage I'd realised, hang on a minute, this Pard thing you can push record and you'll actually get the shot stuff, and I thought, okay, I can do something with that. Instead of having you can't, it's pretty hard to film at night with spotlights and cameras and all of that stuff, especially actual shooting footage. So I just thought that was really cool. So that was the beginning of it. I'd probably always watched the American footage of thermal, and
they were a little more popular and probably access to market a bit easier in the States first. Yeah. And then it flowed on into Australia.
Flowed on, and the technology just got better and better, and that probably improved my results in the paddock somewhat, especially from a fox or wild dog thing, and I probably picked up a little bit of wild dog access in that same sort of time frame.
Were you ahead of the game locally, like other people shooting traditionally?
Most people probably did. I don't think I was, I certainly didn't pioneer any of this. I would never claim that, but locally there were probably other people that were doing it, but that's probably where the path followed, and that suited my lifestyle. So little kids, could get them into bed, get in the car, drive 20 minutes, and go for it. I might have been a 300-acre farm or something, and I could walk around that in 2 or 3 hours, get home, still get up and go to work the next day.
Yeah, not be too affected.
And I wasn't away for the weekend with little kids. So that was probably the first foray into that night stuff, as opposed to how I'd always done it, was quad bikes and spotlights, and you can drag a quad bike out there and ride it around 100 acres, but there's not a lot of point.
No. You spend more time unstrapping and restrapping.
That's it. And I was getting results. That was probably the bigger thing. I was starting to rack up a fair few foxes, and I got a little bit of a reputation on the dogs. And that probably then pushed me more to thermal, doing a bit more of that. And fast forward a few years, and now everything's thermal.
Here we are.
Still got a night vision. I've got 2 night vision scopes.
So
Still use them.
what's the difference? Night vision, thermal, in layman's terms.
So a digital night vision scope. So I think people get a little bit confused between like a military application of night vision, which is your tube night vision, no light sources, obviously, because if you've got 2 forces, you don't want to be able to see each other. You just want to be able to move around in the dark and not be seen. The digital night vision that I run uses an external light source. So it's basically an invisible torch, infrared torch. So if someone else was on an opposing force, they'd see that torch waving around like a white O-light. That doesn't matter for hunting though, because
the animals don't have that.
Yeah.
And they can't see the...
Look, I think they can.
We were talking about game cameras earlier.
We had a chat about trail cameras. I think they can, but you've got to be really close.
Sure.
So probably not as much of an issue if you're shooting centerfire ranges. I certainly don't have too much trouble with rabbits and things like that. So that's just, it's basically a black and white image that uses that torch to see. Whereas thermal it's still infrared, but it picks up body temperature.
Right.
Or all temperatures, so whether that's terrain or the animal or whatever it is. So night vision is a great tool because it's often got a lot more clarity because it's just a black and white image of what you can see. Whereas if you're trying to look past a tree branch or a fence or into grass, it's terrible because that external light source flares out off it. So it's basically a camera. Yeah,
so you're not seeing beyond the initial...
You can't see beyond it, and it's basically a camera. So you would understand the image compensates for that light source. So if you've got grass that IR light's bouncing off 3 metres away, it's just all black behind it because it goes, oh, hang on a minute, the image is too bright. Let's crank everything back. Whereas thermal doesn't do that. You can
see through the trees.
Well, no, you've still got to be able to see it, but you'll see past the obstructs, past the branches and things like that, yeah.
We saw it tonight. We'll probably talk about it a bit later. We saw some things on the edge of the trees and bats and things.
That's it. And you'd still see that with night vision, but you wouldn't see on that. So what we saw tonight with those wispy branches and stuff, you might not see what's on the other side of that.
Yeah, right.
Whereas you will with thermal.
And how does it work price-wise? Like, is night vision entry-level sort of stuff? And then gets into thermal.
It's more affordable, yeah. You can buy entry-level thermal, but...
Throw some numbers.
Look, you can buy... Talk about what I run. You can buy a PARD digital day or night scope. So that'll do daytime colour vision, or you put it into infrared mode and do it nighttime. I think they're $1,900, roughly. You can buy it. I think you can buy a thermal scope in that price range, but you'll only be seeing blobs. You're not going to ID much, which, look, that application might be fine for someone that wants to shoot, rats in a shed or really close, or, they only know that they've got rabbits in that back paddock sort of thing, but you step up to get the clarity that I'm probably chasing with the thermal, and you're spending, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on a scope. And you can spend more than that, but...
How bad does it get? This guy's spruiking a $25,000.
Yeah, look, I had to play with that thing. Yeah. Yeah, you can spend 23 on that's the InfiRay RS75.
Right.
And that's a 1280 resolution scope.
Is it 3 times better than an $8,000 scope?
No. And that was, I like to use the best thing that I can, and that's the problem. I think I talked about it in a review I recently did, and it turns into the TV world of you go to JB Hi-Fi and they've got 4 of them on the wall. And the cheap one doesn't look as good as the $8,000 one up there. But if you put the cheap one in your lounge room without anything around it, it's still really good.
Yeah.
Thermals, to a point. I think the entry-level stuff I'm not all that interested in for what I do, because the ID is just not as good. And look, there's an element of what I do that thermal is a camera, because I create content with it. So
what does ID mean?
Identification.
Yeah, right. The ID is not that good. Gotcha.
Yeah.
The clarity.
Yeah.
And we spoke about that earlier today. We were talking about one thing I see online is that when you're using thermal, it's really hard to ID animals. You know, a round blob looks like a round blob sometimes at a certain distance.
Yep.
And you pointed out some different ways of doing that. It wasn't particularly the shape and the size, but maybe the mannerisms.
Movement, how they bounce around. Yeah, there's lots of things that you can do like that, and that comes with time behind
Practice.
thermal. There's certainly an element that I always get worried when someone gets into it for the first time if they are a little bit trigger happy. I think you need that restraint, and one thing I get asked will be, I need a thermal scope, I've got $2,000 and I need to shoot foxes at 400 metres. And the first thing you say is, why would you use it at 400 metres? They don't know you're there. You just move closer.
Yeah.
And that's probably the big difference. It's passive.
Sure.
So as long as you can get the wind right and be quiet and do all the right stuff and the animal hasn't moved off, you just go closer.
How close can you get?
Oh, hear the camera.
Yeah, right.
Especially whistling foxes. You can bring them right in. It's probably more the eyepiece of that range. I'm sure they see the eyepiece lighting your face up a little bit when they're within 5 or 10 metres. I think they can. They don't see it when they're further away. But yeah, I've shot some pretty close stuff.
Have you seen that video of Ron Keane, silver fox? He whistled one in and jumped on his chest.
I did see that. That was very cool.
That's close quarters.
I haven't had one jump on me. I've had pigs really close and just not realise. We've actually had radio comms. I've had a friend saying there's one at the bottom of your tripod, and inadvertently, I only realised, or I didn't realise there were two animals there. So I was watching what I thought was the pig,
right,
which was 15 metres away, and there's another one that's walked out of the grass, and my friend's in the car with a scanner, and he can see the one right under me. So that was a interesting moment when he said.
Did you bust up, or did he bust?
No, I think he said it's under your tripod, and you got to realise with thermal that reading distance can be difficult.
Could be on the other side of the tripod.
And depth perception. I've had the same thing with people saying, "Are you going to shoot that pig? You know, you're right on top of it." And for me, it's 100 metres away, but they're behind me and it looks closer. I just assumed that scenario with the pig that was basically under the tripod was a misconception, but when I heard the grass moving,
it was under the tripod,
and I was on the scope looking at the other animal. So I shot that one and racked around. I never ended up getting the close ones.
Too close.
I think it just busted off into the grass, but that's all on video. That was a cool little memory.
That would have been fun to put together and watch.
Oh, I think my friend was more amused than anything. He was in the car having a good old chuckle over that one.
I used some thermal just the other night, and we were discussing that the distance is hard to tell. It's very hard to, like a large animal quite far away is very similar to a small animal quite close.
Yep. And I've seen people shoot the small pig when they thought that it was the big one, but the big one was further away.
Right. Is it? And now you've got stuff that's giving you ranges though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Rangefinder. I was always you don't need a rangefinder. You can get away with it. You know, you've got a centre fire that'll shoot flat to 200 metres, but after having a rangefinder, I do like having the rangefinder.
I think it's like hunting without binoculars. You do it for a while and you're like, oh, this is cool. I really like hunting. And then you get binoculars and you're like, I wasn't hunting. Now I'm hunting.
Yeah.
This is different.
But that's also an efficiency element as well with the rangefinder. So if you're moving in on an animal and you're struggling to pick range, say I'm walking in on a mob of 6 pigs out in a paddock, I don't really need to slow down and start to think about being quiet till I'm, say, 150 metres away, maybe 100 metres. Now, if I'm walking in from 600 metres away, it's really handy to know how far away they are, because I can just keep
make
moving.
Noise for 400 metres.
Literally walk along and nearly have a conversation until you get to that point that you think, okay, they're just there. Whereas not using a rangefinder, and I've done it,
waste a lot of time.
You do. You're like, and then I think for a time I had a rangefinder on my scope. So you put the gun down, get on the scope, hit the rangefinder. Oh no, they're still 230 metres away.
Back up.
Keep moving. So it's efficient time-wise from that perspective.
If you had to circle back a bit and just, you're only allowed one bit of kit, like one bit of electronical device.
Not fair. We didn't talk about this before. That's not fair. Look,
it wasn't one of the pre-arranged questions. There was no pre-arranged questions.
All the pre-arranged questions, no. I think...
More from an entry level.
You'd have a
scanner. If I want to get into it and get a start, where would you start?
You said that to James.
Yeah.
Thermal scanner, run a torch on your gun.
Right.
If you have to.
You scan close, get close, and then turn torch on.
You'll spend hours looking through the scanner, and you only need to get on the scope to shoot. And I know people will say, "Oh, yeah, but..."
And it's also that's heavy.
Look, it's
doing
heavy
this all the time.
to scan through a rifle.
It's dangerous swinging a rifle around.
It's dangerous. Even on a tripod, you're still, hunched over and looking around. You don't have that freedom of movement. You spend a lot of time with a scanner. Like, I run a red headlight, so I don't have a huge sphere of light around where I am for any visibility. It's basically just to see that I'm not going to fall over a rock or something. So you're on the scanner all the time, just trying to pick your terrain and where you might want to go, or where a track is, or a feature that you want to move towards. Doing that through a rifle's just, that's no fun. And I've probably had a lot of people that have asked that question. I've said, look, you've got to get a scanner, and they'll say, no, I'm going to go out and buy this $8,000 rifle scope because it's the best one. I'm like,
why'd they ask?
Buy a scanner ender.
Yeah.
If you've got that budget and you're starting off,
split the money in by two.
Try and buy two. And a lot of the time, I find people will ask a question, and I've probably been guilty of it in the past, and you've already made your own mind up, but you're trying to validate it off someone else that might have some experience in that space. And often they will make that decision regardless of external input.
Sure.
And then 3 weeks later, they'll be like, I should have brought a scanner.
Listened.
Which one should I get?
Gonna need a bigger boat.
That's happens often.
Tonight, you gave me a binocular, and you had binoculars. Obviously, binoculars dearer, being bigger, but yours were like the difference between the two was
big difference. Yeah,
I wouldn't say chalk and cheese, but it was definitely two different types of cheese.
Notable. Yep.
And just for example's sake, we were looking at the side of the hill, and I could clearly see there was kangaroos and rocks, but they were similar heat signature value. And we were, what was it, 7:30 at night? Like, it wasn't. Yeah. The rocks were still holding some temperature from the day.
The sun's been out today. Yep.
Yeah. And then flicking over to yours, you could clearly see it was like a grainy, lighter colour for the rocks, and then this bright as this thing.
Yep.
And you run, that's white hot, is that what that's called?
That was in white hot, yeah.
Is that your main, what you run, or why would you use the others?
Look, sometimes I use a colour mode called, on my Pulsar stuff, called red monochrome, and that's just easier on the eyes.
Right.
So that'll be a red background, and a hot animal will be almost like a yellow colour. Mm-hmm. So those hot rocks might be like an orange. And that's just a bit easier on your eyes. It just depends. I do like white hot, as if I had to pick one mode, it'd be white. But I run red a lot because it's just a bit easier on your eyesight. And
using those binoculars, we were also, the way you scan is very grid. Move across, move down, move across. It was a very rigid way. And when I'm scanning the side of a mountain with binoculars at daytime, I'm very similar. I'll just hold them there and then do that with your eyes. Move down, do that with my eyes.
Some of that, though, will come back on experience of how you glass. So you would, if you're looking for deer, you would potentially know where to look for the deer.
Yeah, that helps.
Whereas it's the same, a lot of the time it's the same at night with thermal, or I get the benefit of I don't have to scan the whole hillside. I can move into that portion of the hill and I can go, there's 4 dots there because it'll stand out.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I scan a little bit blocky sometimes. It's interesting you notice that because I probably don't think that I do that.
I got it on film. So.
Oh, great. Oh, well, there you go. But yeah, it's just funny the things that you do and you don't think about it. You just inadvertently do it because it works. And that works for me. So,
talking about work, this is not shooting's not your full-time gig, but it's definitely something you're pursuing as a venture, and it's...
Yeah, look, it probably could be a full-time thing, but maybe one day. We'll see. I still like my professional career, And this is obviously turning into quite the beast of a thing that I never thought it would. I guess one of the elements with look, a lot of so if we talk about contract shooting, so a lot of that professional capacity work, a lot of that is travelling. It's almost like a FIFO role, unless you live somewhere that is rural and that workload is there. For me, I don't. I live reasonably close to all of that stuff, but it's still weekends away. And look, the work's a lot of what I do is at night. So yeah, there's that element that's almost FIFO. You're away from home, you might be staying in a motel room, trying to get a bit of sleep through the day, go out and work at night. And I still really enjoy the shooting and the hunting, and I look forward to a trip. Even though it's an element of work now, I still really look forward to it, and I want to keep that kind of passion.
Yes.
I don't want to go... And look, sometimes it does happen. You'll have a week where you'll shoot 4 nights in a row, or, 6 out of 7 nights, or whatever that is, if there's a contract on, or like a local thing or something. And it wears you down.
Yeah.
You don't get sick of it, but by the 3rd or 4th night, you're starting to think, right,
it's a job.
Okay, let's go again. And
it's no different to Friday at work. Like, it's been a big week.
Yeah. And it sounds awful to say that, because it's pretty cool that
it's cool.
Get paid to do, well, I forget what the phrase is. What is it? Turn
your hobby into a job, I suppose. And that's dangerous too. And I did that a little bit with the guiding side of hunting. It doesn't... I still find ways to enjoy hunting by myself or hunting with friends, but when you're guiding, everyone goes, oh, you're living the life, it's the dream, but it's high pressure. Yeah. It's hard work.
A lot of it will be away from home. You're not just going into an office or drive half an hour and that's your workplace. It's away. Yeah.
No, and my wife thinks that I enjoy it more than being at home. And it has its enjoyable times, but I'm busy. She's at home thinking about me being away, and I'm away thinking about what I'm doing. So it's, it's different. But my son gave me a little reminder of what I'm going to miss while I'm away this week by vomiting on the floor. Moments before I walk out the door, and then I went back in and cleaned all that up and had to settle that down. But yeah, being away from the family is not a fun thing long term.
I like
it's all right occasionally, but
yeah, and I think everyone needs a break. Like, I took my kids away in the last school holidays for a few days, and my wife liked the break. She said, "Oh, you got to do a bit more of that. I like the break." And so it's just hard to find that balance sometimes, or a lot of the time, if I'm honest. But
into the contract side of things, I know I've asked this question of other guys before, but is that attainable? Because everyone, when I say everyone, a lot of people want to be a contract shooter because they think they can get a lot of
questions about that.
They get cans on the front of their gun and things like that. Like, there's perks to it, but how easy is it? What are some of the barriers to it? And is it attainable for most people?
Look, I think it's a business. I think that's the biggest thing that people forget. People think, oh, I'm a hunter, I like going shooting. I seem to get a lot of messages off young guys, I've left school, whatever that might look like. I want to be a contract shooter. Now, there's obviously a skill set involved. I think what people forget is, unlike being an electrician, there's no electrician that knocks on a door and says, can I fix your wiring for free? Yeah. And there's 100 behind him. Whereas contract shooting...
It's a good way to look at it.
And it's not that we're trying to take stuff off normal, regular recreational hunters, because we're not. But they're all trying to get access for free. And I think you've got to deliver something at a higher level to charge.
Sure.
So that's probably the first thing. Look, the legislation and all the barriers, yeah, there's a lot. Anyone that's dealt with the registry just to get a regular rifle, or, if you moved house or any of that stuff, the stuff they ask sometimes is pretty onerous.
Do you get the feeling they don't really want you to have a suppressor or these sorts of contract licenses?
I don't know. I don't know if there's another hidden agenda going on there or not, but it's certainly niggly. I know some of the contracts that I submitted, excuse me, to get my licensing path underway as a vertebrate pest controller, there were challenges on that path with what I submitted to get at certain land spaces and things like that. Because I think one of the aspects for what I do, I've got a license type called business employment business other. So that lets me shoot on land that's non-rural.
Right.
So
domestic, residential.
Look, a lot of it, I think, I don't do any of that work. So I think you can.
Sure.
But what you need is risk assessments and approval from local police and all that sort of stuff. What it means is, though, is I can shoot industrial, commercial, all of that stuff that's not your RU1.
Do you go down
residential.
the pigeon path and rats and that sort of thing?
All of that sort of stuff. So a lot of that's not residential land, but it's not rural land.
Yep.
Now, I put contracts in for all of that sort of stuff because that's sort of the path that drove me to do the professional side of it. And, they came back and said, oh, you haven't got business employment business other. And I said, why not? And they said, well, your contract doesn't state that it's non-rural. I'm like, but without going into what some of that land space was, it's pretty clear that it's not rural.
Yeah.
Now, I probably made an assumption that the registry would assume or know that that land space isn't rural.
Sure.
Pretty obvious, but no, they like to go back and resubmit it all again and
get the new contract written.
Painful.
Do you do any mine work up here?
Some, yeah, a little bit. A lot of the mining sites don't want actual shooters on them, obvious reasons, because they work round the clock. So on. But yeah, there's a little bit of work in that space. A lot of trapping goes on the mine sites and things like that, which I don't normally do because that's, you're always monitoring that sort of stuff.
One thing I've heard in the past said to me, and I've thought it too, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the main barriers to entry is it's tricky. You need a contract to say, yes, I'll let you shoot here, but you can't get a contract unless you're a contract shooter.
Yep.
And you need that to apply for this, but you need this to get that.
You've almost got to do a contract with a nil balance because so everyone understands, as a recreational hunter, you can't charge or accept anything for any kind of service. So that can even be
governed by who?
The registry. It's in the legislation. So you can't even technically, by that legislation, you can't even accept ammunition off a farmer.
Yeah, I'll give you a box, you go and shoot some stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Yep. Which I don't agree with, but that's
why it's written.
How it's written, from my understanding, that's how it's written. Now, to get a vertebrate pest control licence, you're right, you've got to have a contract. So I have to go out almost against the legislation. So you've got to put the cart before the horse and say, here are my contracts. Can I have a licence so I can actually do that?
Fulfil the contracts that I can't have because I don't have a contract.
Yeah.
It's like the first time you jump in the car for your L's. Like, I learned to drive before I had my L's.
Yeah.
How do you do one before the other? You can't.
But that's the system. I mean, that's the system in New South Wales. I think it's different in other states, but it's onerous, to say the least. And then you've got all the police implications as well. So any land that you shoot on that isn't rural, you've got to notify police. Mm-hmm. They're really great to work with.
Yep.
I have to say that. A lot of the time they're interested. What are you doing? Where will you be? Oh, wow. What do you use? Like, I've had a couple of phone calls with officers that are hunters. Oh, yeah, we might come out and have a look at what you're doing. And
come out after when I'm finished, please. Yeah.
You've got to say that. Yeah, maybe. Okay.
I'll see you at this time.
Yeah. So that's really cool. But there's a lot of it, then you've got all the risk assessment side of it and the documents and SOPs, and it's a workplace.
Mm.
It's like any
a lot of record keeping too, probably.
It's a workplace, yeah. And I think that's what people forget sometimes, is that paper trail side of it that you don't kind of see.
Yeah. On the police side of it, have you ever had the cops called on you by someone?
Mm. Well, that's part of the reason why I've never had an issue with that, but that's part of the reason why we have to notify.
Right, like notifying of a burn off.
Yeah, so if they get a phone call and I've heard 6 gunshots in the last half an hour, they have to respond to that.
Yes.
Whereas if they look
is 6 the cut off, or is it you just using? No,
just as it could be one.
Yeah. They have to respond.
They have to respond. Whereas if we make a phone call and say, this is who I am, here's my number and name, I'll be on this site between these hours. And they'll put it on the duty log. So if they get that phone call, they'll look on the duty log and say, oh, actually, there's a contract shooter working on that site. unless they hear something silly or get heaps of complaints. I've never, but they've got your number. I've never had a phone call from the police. I've had people yell at me. That a few funny ones of those.
Neighbours or
outside of the site that we might be on.
Yeah.
Shine torches at you but I've had that on rural land as well, on smaller blocks, whistling foxes and things like that. You know, bloke over the back that wants to hunt them himself and he doesn't like that you're there with a caller and they shine the torch at you and tell you to piss off. And
doesn't like the fact you're more effective than he is.
Maybe, I don't know.
We played with the caller tonight. I haven't used one of those. What was
Electronic, that was just the Architect.
Have you got others, or that's the main one?
No, that's the main one I use. I think there's probably better ones to use, but that one's portable. It suits me.
Yep. What sort of noises can it throw out?
Anything you want. I think it comes with about 200 different calls.
You can download extra ones?
You can download extras. You can make your own off MP3 files, all sorts of stuff. I've got a few custom calls on mine that work well. I think that dog one I had tonight wasn't I think someone sent me that.
Do you use it for the kids? Like, hey kids, clean up your room. Just press the button. And
no, not really. We had a
custom call.
Different topic, but with that caller thing, my little boy had a couple of mates over a few weeks ago. They're 8, and it wasn't his input as a defence. It was one of the other little boys said, let's do hunting or something like that. And I thought, I was in the garage. I thought, oh, great. So they were running around. I forget what they were looking for that was mythically in our backyard. And I put the caller out. Didn't tell them. And went inside with the remote and said to my wife, watch this.
Just set it to Yeti or so.
Oh, I think I put it on a wild dog howl and these.
How they respond?
Oh, they all just sort of stood on the spot and danced around a little bit, and the little fella cottoned onto what was going on pretty quick, and they all started to run around, and then I had pig calls on and all sorts of stuff, and yeah, that was like the game every 3 minutes. Can you put it back on again?
Yeah, it became a thing.
Yeah.
And you're in a residential area knowing the neighbours.
Great, yeah. I don't know what they went home and told their parents went on either, but
yeah, I look forward to that with my kids when show and tell comes and they walk into a trophy room like this.
Happens. I think that's my kids take their friends.
What do your kids say at school? Has that ever come up? And I often worry about like what our teachers are going to think, because my daughter's she's not backward in coming forward.
Yep.
And she had Profty come through the other week, and Grace, my daughter, had watched one of his videos on TV like the night before, and then the next day we saw him, and she cornered him at the front door and said, "You're not coming in until you bring some venison." Because in her mind, she thought he'd come straight from the video to the front door.
That's very cute. Yep.
And things like that. She's regularly throwing out comments, and it's going to be interesting come school time.
Look, I think like anything, there needs to be context in some of that exposure. And I've always tried to do that with the kids. So I've still got family on farms and things like that. So they've seen all aspects of that. They've seen the dead sheep or a dead cow or whatever that might look like, holes in the ground from pigs. So I always try and show the kids that, or, a lot of the local stuff's rabbits. I always try and show them that kind of damage, that impact side of it. So they can see there's a reason,
negative,
why it happens. My daughter's not that she's an animal lover. She's not interested in pulling the trigger on anything other than a target. She's pretty keen to get a licence, but but the little fella's really keen to go out. We had him out in the rut this year gone, and he had a great time. I don't think he understood the context of what we were doing and what he was seeing, because he's used to that. We're in a complete lolly box of deer. And he's just like, can we go somewhere else? And we're like, mate, there's 100 deer down there. Can we just watch them? Let's go somewhere else. And then we went to the other spot, and he's like, can we go back to the car? But I guess that's kids. Yeah,
I don't quite understand the whole slogging it out in the state forest and not seeing anything for years.
Not seeing a thing. And I said that to him. We repeated that all day. Do you know how lucky you are to see this? And I don't think they get the context of that, because that's just what they're exposed to.
And they've got a killer for a dad, so I think I said earlier, you get paid for mass murder. It's sort of on the topic of your daughter saying she's an animal lover. I would say that we are too. Like, hunters love animals. It's an interesting concept, but you've definitely had your fair share of animal lovers reach out to you recently.
It's fantastic, yeah,
and express their views on their animal loving, and
lots of that. Yeah, lots of no understanding, or And look, I guess in their mind, they don't understand why we might want to shoot a rabbit or a fox, or especially the cats. The cats' videos drive people wild. But people just don't understand that. And I guess there's an element that I'll just flick and don't want to, it's not worth the time to talk about that. There's an element that's worth trying to do a little bit of education, and people might learn from that, and that does happen. But I just think sometimes people, it's just easy to jump to a conclusion on a phone keyboard and type a comment. And
it's easier to write a response than it is to Google sometimes.
Yeah, flick screens on your phone and say, type in feral cats in Australia. And the first thing that comes up is literally the Google populated thing that comes up. Is
how much damage they do.
Is pretty indicative of how bad they are here, but people don't understand that.
Are you doing feral cat jobs specifically, or are they a byproduct?
No, they're just normally a byproduct. Yeah. I'd be happy to.
If anyone's listening in and got a cat problem.
Yeah, happy to deal with cat problems. But yeah, normally they're just a byproduct. And look, a lot of the time I might be on a job and we can't shoot cats. Because we might be near a domestic area and they're worried that it's someone's
possibility
pet,
that could
or
be.
It might be, they've got, I don't know, pick an example, stable cats. Yeah, they're no one's pets,
but they've got a job.
But they're there to control rats in the stables or something like that. Now,
and then you say I can control rats.
I don't necessarily agree with uncontrolled cats, because they will eat mice and rats, but they're probably also eating birds and frogs and lizards and all that sort of stuff as well. But that's their land space. That's the job. It's not my job to argue that front.
Has there been a job that you got that you thought, geez, I never thought I'd get this job? Like,
I've shot in some. Probably not. No, I've shot in some spots that just you've literally got to slap yourself around sometimes, because you just think, you look around and you think, how is it that I'm standing here with a rifle,
like in the main street of a town?
Yeah, you're just like, this just feels really wrong, I guess, because you've gone from it's okay to have a gun in a car on a farm to you might be on a council roadway or something like that, and you think, how's this?
I remember seeing, it was probably Bo Ricketts. He had shooting a cathedral or something, and pigeons in the main street of town, and had the cops sort of shut off the street. And some of the things you guys go do behind the scenes is pretty crazy.
A lot of the time, people don't realise that. A lot of it's all after hours and stuff like that as well. But we've had people come up and approach and say, "What are you doing?" And it's explainable. It's not. No one's backwards in going forwards with that. Or we're here to do a pigeon job or rabbits or whatever that might be. And normally people are like, I think,
interested.
Yeah, there's an interest level, or they're not there to argue. They're more like, hey, what are you doing? And you tell them, and the manner in which you address someone in that scenario. That doesn't, I won't say it gives them pause, but they sort of go, oh wow, these guys aren't trying to put it under a jacket and run away and hide. They're just saying, hey, this is what we're doing. It's not an episode of Underbelly where we're trying to hide things in the boot and things like that. So
taking things out in the main street. Yeah,
it's different, very different.
Have you got a favourite job you've done, or? I know, and some of the things you do aren't jobs either. You still do some farm work. Yeah,
a little bit of farm work. Look, I wouldn't say I've got a
quite
favourite job. I probably enjoy the variety that I get to do. So, for example, I'm quite happy to go out and shoot rats with an air rifle, or pigeons, or rabbits. But I also enjoy the pig work and deer and all that sort of stuff. So
different reasons.
It's all very different. I think some of the work's really boring as well. You get someone that contracts you there because they've lost, 4 chooks a night for the last 2 weeks, and you've got to shoot 1 fox. You're there all night until you see the fox, and that gets dull. You're not doing the glorious let's go for a walk around. You might be on 13 acres.
Sit and wait.
Just sit and wait. The fox has been coming in each night. You're not sure when.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't get the liberty to pat anything. You're just there waiting for the fox. And sometimes it might come in at, 10 minutes after it gets dark, and you go bang and it's all over. Sometimes you might sit there until 2 o'clock in the morning.
On the contract side of things, how does the pricing work? Is it just something you set? Like, there's no industry regulations and standards for that. It's not like you can look in the yellow page and say, oh, this fence is charging this much per
that's
metre.
it. And I get asked that a lot, and it's probably not a path that I go down. All I can say is it's your time and you have to put a value on that.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people probably undervalue that time, you know.
And how many of your customers or non-customers even go, oh, I'm not paying for someone to do that?
Often, yeah.
I thought it'd be free or...
Yeah. No, often. And a lot of that's, you might talk to them and they'll either will or won't come around, and that's entirely up to them. But, you know, a sheep farm's a really good example because they've had recreational hunters that have come out and all of a sudden they've got a pack of dogs come through and they've lost, 40 lambs in the last week and we've got a problem, can we get you to come out? And you give them a price and they'll go, oh, it's like, yeah, but how many lambs? Like add up what that's
$150
worth.
times 40.
Yeah. And they go, oh, yeah, righto, mate, we'll let you know. And it's like, okay. And I've had callbacks from, it might go another week and they'll say, yeah, can you come out?
Lost more. The other thing with rec hunters, I mean, we do our best, but because we're not financially incentivised, you're not doing the whole night, or you're not, invested. I haven't gotten any of the thermal equipment because I can't afford it because I'm not making money off it.
Yeah.
So, and they say, the rec hunters are doing a good job. They shot 2 foxes here last weekend, and then you shine your thing around and see 13. They're only seeing a fraction.
Yeah, and a lot of people have got a fox problem, and you might go there and shoot 5.
Yeah, they think they're all the same.
Yeah, but and you're dead right. A lot of that is like we'll call it a commitment level. As it's pretty hard to walk off a job if you're there.
Yes.
Like I like to think I'm an honest person, and if someone said, righto, what can you do? And I'll say, right, I'll be there for 8 hours. You're there for 8 hours. Mm. You're not there for 3 and then you drive out and charge them for 8. I don't think, I'm reasonably early in this business path, and I think that's a really good way to ruin a reputation if you do that. So, and sometimes that's very boring, but that's the job.
On the air rifle front, you spoke about shooting the the pigeons and what air rifle are you running? These things are getting like, I've got a break action thing that one single.
Yeah. So I run an FX Impact Mark III.
Right.
And it is a very complex little bit of kit. It is probably one of the best tools I've got now, I'd have to say that. I always looked at them in the shooting mags and thought, wow.
Air canister.
Yeah, wow, look at that freaky looking thing, and always looked at the price and thought, why would someone spend $3,500 on an air rifle? I tell you what, that thing's made its money a couple of times over. It is a really good little tool.
And they have a like a magazine or a cartridge?
Yeah, so it's like 27 round rotary mag.
Yep.
So reasonably high.
It looks like you get like when you buy pins or needles sometimes, it comes in a circle thing and you spin it around and one pops out the side.
Yeah, so you rotate it, put a lock pellet in and then put the other ones in. It's a really handy little tool, and I know you can turn them right up to shoot as powerful as a 22 if you want. I think the caveats to that, you use a lot of air.
So you got 27 shots in the magazine, I suppose?
Yeah.
How many shots are you getting out of a tank?
My rifle, how I run it, if I'm shooting rabbits, I get about 70 shots out of a air tank for my tune, but I shoot 23 grain slugs. So they're like a 22 projectile in shape with a big hollow point in the front, and they're not your traditional air rifle pellet with a
shuttlecock
back. Yeah, they're not. That's not what they are. They're actually a projectile.
Right.
And they're really, really good on rabbits.
Rifled
barreled. Biggest thing for me is they very, very rarely ricochet, which a lot of the work is on
sheds or tin
ground that there might be compacted gravel tracks and things like that.
Yep.
And you shoot a 22 with a subsonic on that all the time.
I can't even make the noise.
All the time. Whereas that little air rifle just doesn't, because it's like the projectile's lighter weight, but it's so accurate. It's a little bit quieter than a suppressed 22, not a lot, a little bit quieter. But yeah, a lot of the stuff for me is just that ricochet factor.
Can you suppress air?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a suppressor on your air? Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, unsuppressed, they've still got quite a crack to them.
Right.
But yeah, mine's suppressed. It's got a few other little bells and whistles done to it, but it's very, very efficient. And the other side of it for me is it's adjustable. So it's not all about high power. So pigeons are a great example. And there's probably a misconception. I get a lot of comments on a video if I put something up shooting pigeons, and they're like, oh, great, are you going to go out and pay the farmer for all the holes that you put in his shed? Now, I run that thing like your old break barrel air rifle. I shoot little 16 grain pellets at about 650 feet per second. Now, if you shoot sheet iron square on at about 10 metres, it'll punch a hole through it. But if you put some angles in the mix,
bounces off.
Especially if you're
hitting a bird, or
and a lot of that works quite close. Like a lot of it's 10 or 20 metre. You might go into an industrial shed and you might take some shots at 30 metres, but you probably don't have to. That might only be to get an angle because there's birds up on purlings and things like that. So a lot of it's the ability to turn it down, and when you turn that gun down, it's really quiet, like stupid quiet, which is great because you can go in and do a job and people don't even realise that you're in there.
Are these over-the-counter pellets?
Yep.
You haven't got down the path of melting your own?
No, I don't think I'd ever do that. Probably wouldn't be worth it.
But you reload your own for your centerfires?
Reload my own centerfire stuff, which is slowly changing. A lot of the contract jobs you can't shoot reloaded ammo. You've got to shoot factory ammo.
As a legality reason being just
quality control, I guess. Right. Yeah. I haven't done too much. A lot of the government works factory ammo.
Yep.
A lot of the private stuff isn't.
Some of the factory ammo these days is consistent enough to be reliable.
Look, it wouldn't bother me either way. I think it's probably an interesting topic in itself is rifle accuracy. I think everyone chases the 10mm group, and they want that jagged looking hole at 100 metres, and the reality is introduce a bit of wind and a bit of a heartbeat and a field position and
a bit of real life.
It's if it shoots an inch, it's probably more than enough.
Yeah.
So I think most modern rifles with, I won't say all factory ammo, but reasonable factory ammo, they'll shoot an MOA group.
A mate of mine calls it minute of deer.
Yeah.
That's that's what.
And look, I think there's a buck fever element as well.
Oh yeah.
I still get that. Someone said that to me. Oh, do you just not get nervous when you shoot? I can shoot pigs and rabbits and pigeons and no drama. Go away in the rut. I had buck fever last rut. That's probably why I enjoy to do it.
Yeah. Reminds you about it.
It does, yeah.
You said you had a few comments. Obviously, videos are quite successful and some are ranking better than others and things, but as the viewership grows, they're growing to see a certain type of video. And then you did a video on the rut, which was, probably one I would enjoy more, purely hunting related. And when I say hunting, I mean, stalking. And you passed up a lot of animals that weren't right for you and things like that. And some of the viewers commented and said,
I think, some people...
Why are you shooting all those?
How come you didn't shoot all the deer? So, look, I was happy to have that conversation. But I think that's what people need to understand, is that there is a difference between the two. And look, that property is how it is because the people that own it want to manage the deer numbers or run an operation there, whatever they want to do. They've seen a commercial value in having those deer, whatever that might be, whether it's for harvesting or trophy potential, whatever that is. And I think that's probably the difference. Now, I could go out there and go, 5k down the road and get a job to do a deer contract because they're eating a green wheat crop. That's just what the job is.
You have to flick that switch off in your head occasionally.
Yep. And it's complete, I won't say poor old deer, but they're not the sharpest animal at night. You can, a lot of the time,
easy to drop a grip, drive
up pretty close to them, and especially using thermals and stuff like that. I'll call it an efficient control method, but it's sometimes that's the job.
Can you see antlers very well in thermal?
It depends.
I've heard obviously better in velvet.
In velvet, they just absolutely glow because they've got blood flow.
Sure. Velvet,
100%. You'll see them from 500 metres away.
And would some of your jobs be like females only, or is it like deer dead?
Most of my work will just be I've got deer on the crops, get them off.
Yeah.
You can see them. It depends sometimes on the backdrop. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when they walk, sometimes you can see them really well if they walk past a tree.
Right.
And put something that's a little bit colder behind them as opposed to just general terrain.
Sure.
But you can see them. I don't think I would say that you can assess them for quality of a trophy.
Yeah.
But you can see them.
I suppose you don't call it a trophy once you shoot it.
No, not really. I don't think I've got...
Do you ever collect any? Like, do you keep antlers?
I'm literally sitting here thinking, I don't think I've got a set of antlers that I've shot with a thermal on a coal jog.
Just leave them for the farmer.
Yeah, I don't think I do. Which is interesting in itself, but no, I don't.
Well, it's different though. Yeah, it's a different outcome.
But I'll take a picture if it's got a big set of tusks. So that's why I say it's interesting. It's funny how our mind works.
If you're hunting pigs, not shooting pigs, do you drop a jaw out and take it home?
If I shoot a big boar,
yeah.
Or I might take the time to take a photo or something like that. It's interesting.
I've talked about a lot the difference between shooting and hunting, and neither of them are, like, there's no problem with either of them. And you're actively doing both. You just switch that one off and kick into this one for that week and then go back to this one on the property next door.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and I'm sort of developing this too, but coming through a stage of from shooting to hunting, and some people stop along the way and never make the next step, and that's fine. Some people skip the first couple and end up in the hunting side of it, but you're actively doing both.
I think, take what I do aside, I think as a whole, hunters probably need to be a little bit more, call it compassionate or understanding that there are, as you say, the journey, there are people on various stages of that. And the one thing I hate seeing, especially on, a deer hunting Facebook group or something like that, someone puts it might be a young fallow buck, they've never shot one before and they're proud as punch.
First comment, nice colour.
Let's put it up, and you just get all these, I'll call them twats on there that just want to, big note what they've done, you shouldn't have shot it, get a bigger one, whatever that is. And I just think that might serve that commenter's ego. But the guy that put that post up is probably really proud of what he's achieved. And we'll call it an achievement, and I'm sure there's people that put comments on that have probably never shot a buck. They might have seen one in a magazine and know that one's smaller. But I just think that divisive comment section, we shouldn't do it. There's no need.
No, there's a lot of infighting in our industry. There's on the haven't shot a buck thing, there's a Facebook page, and it's a deer hunting Facebook page, and I don't even think the people in it know, but the admin and owner of the page has never shot a deer, just ended up organising that.
Look, that's fine in itself. It's just, I don't think we should belittle other people for what they think's a good achievement.
Yeah.
And I don't see that in the fishing space. Someone might put a little brim up or something like that, and you don't see some guy that's...
We're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot, technically, aren't we?
Yeah.
Giving ammo to the antis.
Yep, which is a shame, but...
On the YouTube side of things, you've obviously grown a lot recently, and everyone wants to know how and why, and obviously it's just the good looks. And
it's exactly that. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. YouTube's really working for you, and is it becoming a beast that's hard to... Or is it not at that stage yet?
No, it's nearly there.
Yeah. It's hard to feed.
It's a funny thing. You can, and I think anyone that's done YouTube content would see it. You get this, you put a video up and you get a spike of views, and then it'll drop down. And then you put another one up and you get a spike, and the drop down might be a little bit less.
Right.
And then it just sort of goes along like a heartbeat, but the lower beat stays a little bit higher when you put stuff up. And look, I don't think anyone that I know will ever figure out how that beast works. Some people put content up every 2 days, and every now and then they'll get a video that'll do really well. Other people will say, I just do one a month, and they all do well. Or I don't think there's a right or wrong to how that works. The algorithm itself is complex, and they change that all the time. We've certainly seen a few restrictions in the hunting space over the years, which have been a challenge for me, for sure. But yeah, it's a beast of a bloody thing, that's for sure.
On the restriction comment, has YouTube restricted any of your...
Yeah, I've had a few, limited ads as a common one if they don't like something.
So there's still, so that allows monetization, but on a lower value? Is that how it works? Like you said, limited ads?
I think it just, as opposed to a broader range of advertisers, like you might see sleeping duck mattress or something like that on my normal videos. Whereas sleeping duck mattress might say, we don't want any blood shown in our video. I don't know what conversation's going behind the scenes, but limited. Basically, if they put limited advertising on a video that's monetized, it's pretty much the death of it. It just stops. They can remove content. If you get 3 strikes, I think it's in 90 days. So if it actually goes against, so there's monetization standards and there's community standards. So they're 2 different things. So if it actually goes against the YouTube standards and they think that it's just too awful or whatever that might be, or you break too many rules, you can get a strike applied to your channel. 3 strikes, 90 days, gone. You don't send you an email and say, hey mate, you got to change this. Gone. And I know a guy that had that happen. He had a air rifle channel. He shoots a lot of rats in Scotland, and he had a video one night where he got a strike for. So he got a message. He sent an appeal in and said, I don't agree with that. And he got up in the morning, his channel was gone. So they'd retrospectively then gone back through his content and gone, you know what, we've found another 2 in there that we don't really like, or that particular person in the Google world didn't like, and ping, ping, channel gone. So he's starting from scratch. So it's a bit scary from that aspect.
Especially, it's an eggs in one basket thing.
Yeah, that's it. And that's probably why I still, I don't think in the near future I'd ever hang my hat on saying I'm a YouTuber that does hunting content. And I know there's a lot of people that do, but I think there's risk involved in that.
It's a retirement thing. When you're retired from the other job, not
literally, or an industry support thing. Sure. I think in America the firearms industry is a lot bigger, so there's a lot of YouTubers over there that get sponsorships or support from brands over there, whereas here it's probably we're middle of nowhere and we're not a huge firearms community, so the brands themselves are smaller. It's probably not quite as much support as what there would be overseas. So
on the branding side of things, have you had a couple of companies give you, have you been involved in any testing on the thermal side of things?
A little bit. Look, I won't say I try not to, but the R&D side of it is hard for what I do. Excuse me. So what I mean by that is, if I'm paid under contract to go out and do a job, it's pretty hard to take something out that may or may not work or might have a glitch in it.
Sure.
So I try not to, or if I do, I try and use that as a secondary device.
Yes.
To do
test
that
it whilst you're doing a job with other products that work.
Yeah, and that's probably why I'm happy to run the stuff that I do at the moment, because it all works.
Yes.
It's a tool, and I don't have any issues with it.
Is it all PARD stuff, or you chop between?
No. So I run PARD night vision scopes. I run pulsar thermal scope and pulsar thermal scanner.
Yep.
And they haven't really missed a beat.
As a company, they're fine. Do you ever provide free feedback?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm on the
Take
European Pro Staff team.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird because I'm not a European, but
we don't have an Australasian branch.
No, well, look, we've got a distributor and all that stuff, but you talk about that market space. In America, their distributor has their own pro staff division because it's a much bigger industry. Whereas I guess I was doing a little bit of my thing over here, and it was noticed by Pulsar on a global sense because I was getting that exposure reasonably well on YouTube. So, that was a relationship that started a couple of years ago, and they're all good guys. The whole pro staff group's great. They're all hunters and
You've been over to do anything with them yet?
No, look, I've been invited over for the last 2 years. They call it the Gathering. They normally do it in May or June, and it just hasn't worked out to go. I think last year was right on the end of the, I had time off for the rut and did all of that sort of stuff, and then I think we had a family holiday and it just didn't time in. This year was very similar. It's a long way to go for
Where is it?
Lithuania.
Right.
So it's a long way to fly over there.
What do they do? Driven hunts? Oh no, you don't do that.
No. It's just they do factory tours, and you get to, lots of input. They do lots of meetings and input on what we think would be good for devices and stuff like that.
You'd need a translator.
No, they speak English. Yeah. No, they're all a really great bunch of people. We've got a couple of Facebook chat groups and we all get along. It's a pretty cool bunch of people. And everyone's got their own inputs. So the guy from Germany's obviously got a different input from the guy from Sweden because they've got all those different hunting cultures and restrictions in their own states, whereas we sort of sit kind of between the Americans and British, I suppose, because we do the fox stuff and we also do the pig stuff, and it's a little bit unique with how we sit in that market space.
I know you mentioned to me before that the deer stuff, Australian deer stuff, doesn't get picked up as well on YouTube versus the pig stuff.
No,
just doesn't have the market space.
Which is weird because there's obviously fallow deer and red deer in Europe and Britain and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know what the limitation is there, but yeah, it's definitely not. Flip a coin though. I don't normally go and look at mule deer footage in America or something like that. So the Americans probably not going to look at fallow deer footage because they might not even know what it is.
So you've got cats, number one, and then dogs.
As in target opportunity or
no video popular like.
No, absolutely not. No, so there's almost two markets at the moment. So you've got YouTube videos, as in horizontal videos, TV, and then you've got YouTube Shorts, which is vertical content, which is like your TikTok style thing, and they're almost two different things. So from a video, I call it long format content. Pigs, rabbits, foxes, all of it can be popular. I'd put the deer stuff down the bottom. Or deer would be pretty low.
Sure. Reviews
under that. Just depends what you do a review on. But in the vertical content, it seems to be rabbits, pigeons, rats, all of that sort of stuff.
Reactive targets.
Yeah, I just think it's probably more globally aware. I don't know why the algorithm seems to get that small game stuff out there. I get a lot of pig videos that get picked up really well. Like I said, I don't understand the algorithm a lot of the time. I had a rabbit video that got picked up, and it was only a short. It's 22 seconds long. It's done really well. That video was 100 days old when it started.
Right.
And I've had this conversation with blokes like Robbo from Bold Action Productions, a couple other people. Hunting with Stuart said, "Oh, you got to put some more shorts up," and he's a top guy. And I'd put them up and I'd get 8,000 views, and I'm thinking, oh, this is crap. Like I'll get 200,000 on a normal video. Why would I bother with the shorts? And a lot of my sort of regular subscribers would say, "What's this junk? I don't want to watch a 40-second video. Like get out there and make a proper one." And 100 days out of the blue, one got picked up, and that grew a whole heap of stuff. I didn't do anything with that video. I didn't put some magic hashtag on it. For whatever reason, it just got picked up. And I've seen that more broadly as well with the whole space. Like I obviously like my cameras and stuff like that. You can see that I've heard people talk about that in the camera review space. A lot of camera channels got really popular. No one predicted it. COVID. Because instead of travelling, people thought, I'll buy a camera, I'm stuck at home, I'll take some photos. So people started to research
how to.
Can't control any of that.
Enjoy it though. Where do you see it heading?
I don't know.
It's not something you could plan for, so...
No. I honestly, I don't know. And that's probably the interesting space I'm in at the moment. It's probably puffed up to a point that I didn't expect really quickly. Like I would have been stoked. Like my goal was always 100,000 subscribers would be awesome. And it went 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's at nearly 510,000.
Yeah.
And I just gobsmacked at those numbers. But I don't know where it'll go. Look, like I said, it's one of those things that potentially, if I marketed things right and I changed how I do a few things, you could do it full time. But at the moment, just off YouTube income and stuff like that, it's not a full time gig for me at the moment. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I'm still enjoying it. I've always said the minute I stop enjoying it, I'll stop.
I'll think about stopping. Yeah.
I never want to make it work. So I've said this before, I'm happy to go out and hunt or shoot, and if I can make content off that, great. But I never want to get to the point that I think I need to go out and kill something so I can make a video.
Right.
Because I think that for me that's the wrong message.
Is it tricky on a contract job where you're getting paid to go in and do a job and then you've got to film it? Or, like, obviously the job is the priority and the filming
the
comes
job
secondary.
always comes first. Yeah. So, and I'll do a lot of jobs that I might just push record on the scope and not do anything at all. I might take a photo of a gun to put on my Facebook or something like that, but that's all that'll be. A lot of the time a lot of jobs they don't want you to record anything. Sometimes there's those commercially sensitive things and they'll say no recording.
That's part of the deal.
That's the deal. The reality is I make more from actual contract shooting than I do off YouTube.
Yeah.
But if someone's paying, I guess the upside is if someone's paying you to be there because they've got a problem, they've normally got a problem. So I've had many a chat with a property owner, or, you know, as a rec hunter, wind the clock back 15 years. G'day, mate. What's up there? Many pigs about? Yeah, heaps of pigs. And they just want someone up there to smack a few pigs. And you go up there and you get 3. Whereas if you get a farmer that rings you up and he's happy to put coin on the table because he's got a pig problem, there's normally a pig problem.
Yeah, right.
You don't get there and see 3. You get
Good
there
numbers.
and see a lot of pigs. So that in itself develops content if I'm pushing record on the scope. So it's a bit of a juggling act. But
And you said you've picked up properties from people watching your videos.
yeah.
And not realising you were local to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take it where you can get it.
That's it. Yeah, it's an odd space. But
When we were out tonight, you said you threw on a couple of subsonic rounds just on the side of the gun, just in case. And it wasn't one of your videos, but you shot pigs with subs, and you shot one there tonight, and man, incredibly quiet.
yeah, quiet. Yeah.
And you said they're a reload. Is that a load you've developed yourself?
Yep.
And it works obviously very well. It's so quiet.
Unfortunately, it's with. I've fortunately got some, but it's with Trail Boss powder, and they haven't made that for a couple of years now.
So you just stocked up back then and have some?
No, I didn't. I've only really been shooting suppressed for, call it 12 months.
Is it a specific powder you need to run suppressed, or is it just a load?
Depends on the round.
I'm not a reloader.
Yeah, it depends on the round.
Right.
Basically, so.
And they were like a petition, the actual projectiles.
So there are, so I guess the science or whatever you call it behind projectile performance, a centerfire projectile is designed to work at a certain speed. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what that might be.
As in it won't open up if it's moving slower than that.
Yeah, so they might develop a certain projectile to work between, 2,000 and 3,000 feet per second, or whatever that
Once
number
you slow
might
it
be.
down, it's sub.
You shoot it at 1,000 feet per second, and then you might as well just shoot a full metal jacket because it's not moving fast enough to get any sort of expansion. They just zip through.
Yep.
Whereas there are special subsonic projectiles that are very soft, and now some of those are off the back of rounds.
It's got a rounded nose too.
It's just like it's almost like a squishy,
like a pen that you use to
toy.
ride on.
It's weird, but
ride on an iPad.
They're a Hornady Sub-X projectile, and they work well. And I believe they were probably developed for rounds like the 300 Blackout or AEC that are slower and more developed for subsonic specific use. Whereas I'm kind of butchering a 308 to shoot subsonic. I think you can buy subsonic 308 ammo, but you can certainly more easily buy 300 Blackout ammo or some of those. There's a couple of other cartridges that suppress subsonic very well. I'm just kind of tapping onto the back of that with a 30 cal projectile.
Yeah. And a mixture of that with the can on the front. That was
a lot of the time the impact down range is more than what
that's what we heard.
you hear.
That's what I heard tonight.
Yeah, but you put an animal out there.
Yes.
And
it's a big thud.
Oh, it makes a hell of a thud. Yeah. Yeah. And they're a good tool in the right application. They shoot like a banana because they're just like it's a 190 grain pill going 1,000 feet per second. So I think I'll run a 50 metre zero, and they're very accurate. But at 100 metres, I shoot off the hip and say it probably drops 8 inches at 100. Let alone if you went to 150, I think I validated my day scope with a subsonic round at 200. I was aiming like, I forget what it was. It was like 1.5 metres over the impact block. It was heaps.
So how do you go running both of those through the same scope?
So in a digital scope, you've got either profiles or trajectories.
Okay.
It's all just electronic. So I just change it. It'll just cycle around.
Do you ever forget to do that?
Sometimes, yeah. Which, the point of impact for my rifle is about 6 inches lower with a subsonic, a little bit to the right.
Over what distance?
Say 50.
Right.
Yeah. So you can forget that you've done it. Try not to. But sometimes you do, which is annoying, but because no one likes to miss. I get this.
Do you put videos up of your misses?
Yeah. Everyone misses. I always say that.
Yeah.
You say, I've had people say, I never miss, and I'm like, well,
you don't shoot enough.
Everyone misses.
I shot, I have this drink. I shot a deer on the weekend and I didn't miss because I hit it, but I didn't hit where I wanted to.
Yeah.
Just under the chest, both forearms.
Yep.
Couldn't go anywhere. I copped a second round pretty quickly, but it was offhand. But yeah, no, I miss. I wouldn't call it a miss. I didn't hit where I wanted to hit.
Yeah, that's it. And that happens. That's the, you can do all of these things to minimise that from happening, but that's the reality of it, unfortunately. So just try not to miss, but often you do.
On the future side of it, how do you see? You've seen the progression of the thermal and the technology moving forward over the past few years, moving into now. Is that just going to keep getting better, or is it getting to the point now where it's just the same but getting smaller and lighter? Or
it's an interesting space because there's all these technical reasons why you can't just go more and more resolution. So unlike a TV, you can buy a 65-inch TV with all the different resolutions. It's still a 65-inch TV. The screen's just better. If you started at the lowest resolution thermal sensor on a 60, the wrong analogy, you'd say it was a 50mm front lens.
Yep.
At the lowest resolution to the highest resolution, and you went through 4 steps, all of those would have different magnifications because there's a relationship between the sensor and the lens size. So the bigger the sensor, the more pixels, the bigger the lens you need to maintain some type of magnification. So if you had a 4K, we'll pick something silly and said, if you had a 4K thermal sensor, you'd need like a 200mm lens on the front to have a 2 mag scope. Now, whether that changes, I don't know if any of that technology is going to change, but that's one of the barriers with thermals is that usability perspective from you've got to put it on a rifle and be able to carry the thing.
Yes.
And obviously the bigger it gets, well then the more affected it is by recoil. So that's a factor.
Does it need to be bigger and better? Like when does it get to the point where it's just like,
I think a lot of the new 640 stuff's amazing. Especially, you've only got to scroll back through some of the Facebook pages and look at what we had 4 and 5 years ago, and it was terrible. Like, that was super cool and modern. And you all
thought it was amazing then.
And you look at it now and you go, oh God, look at that.
It's the same with cars. The model 5 years ago looked pretty sick when it came out.
Yeah. Whereas with a lot of the top end stuff that we've got now, like the 640 resolution stuff, it's really good. Like within a reasonable range, the definition on it's phenomenal.
Right.
So I think it will advance. Where that ends, maybe they'll come up with a new technology. Maybe it won't be thermal or night vision. It might be something else. I'll enjoy the ride.
You'll be in the forefront of it.
Oh, if I'm on the boat, I'll stay on the boat. But we'll see.
Is there an animal that you haven't shot that you really wanted to on the thermal side?
I would. Oh, not with the thermal. No.
Just on the hunting side of it. Like we'll go on the
hunt side. I would like to do a tahr hunt in New Zealand.
What's stopping you? Time.
Yeah, that's my problem at the moment. I'm very time poor.
I
seem to have a full-time job, a part-time contract shooting job, and somewhere in the middle I run all my social media stuff and make and edit videos.
Plus a family.
So I don't get a whole lot of free time, unfortunately, even though a lot of that is somewhat leisurely. It's pretty full on. So I would like to go to New Zealand and do a tahr hunt over there.
What's the allure?
Probably the terrain.
And does this come from the reading magazines back when you were younger type thing?
No, I've spent a fair bit of time in New Zealand, just never hunting. So I've done...
Family trips?
I've done 6 trips over there, bushwalking and trekking around and running and all sorts of stupid stuff. So I love the terrain over there and the environment. I'd just like to merge the hunting and...
Have you seen them while you're over there?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. Probably just about been to the point that I could throw a rock at one, but I would like to go over and hunt one day. It's on the list, but we'll get there.
Oh, let us know when you want to do it. Be good fun.
I'll have to.
We've done it a couple of different ways, but yeah, they're a fun animal. The chamois as well.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few of those.
They're a little more inquisitive. And
trips I've been. Yeah, they're interesting as well. But no, I would like to go and shoot a big bull tahr, for sure.
In the rut.
One day. I was nearly 1 year going to put in for the West Coast ballot, and it just never happened. But it was on the list.
Do you put in for the hog deer ballot?
Nah.
Doesn't interest you? Again, that's it. No, the problem with drawing
it's probably just a time thing. No, I haven't. I don't. I've probably never been one to aspire to shoot the Grand Slam or any of that sort of stuff. As cool as that would be, it's probably never been something on my list of things to do. I still have a lot of fun hunting fallow and red deer locally.
Fallow are my favourite. Just geographically, that's what I've got closest to home.
Yeah.
And if I had red deer closer, I'd give them a go. But
yeah, and a lot of that is access and what region you're in and all that sort of stuff. But
main thing's just to get out there and do it. Doesn't matter what you got close.
Absolutely. Yep.
So anyway, that's probably us for tonight, and I'd just like to thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me on.
I know I've learned a lot, and look forward to...
we had a little bit of fun earlier. So.
We did have some fun. Well, we didn't even really talk about that. No, let's go to that. Turned up at a property just down the road, and he said, there's a good chance we'll see a dog. There's probably some dogs. There might be some dog. There might not be a dog. And then what happened as soon as you turned it on?
We went over the fence and walked about 250 metres, and 500 metres away,
there's a dog.
There was a dog. So that was pretty cool. Couldn't get it to come in, so we ran the caller a little bit with a rabbit in distress. Certainly got its interest. It turned straight away and sat down. It was on the other side of quite a deep creek, which we probably need to add. So it wasn't a matter of just going over there. It's quite a ways to get.
And even if you're at the bottom, seeing up, you might not see it.
Yeah, and it's quite long. Well, the grass is shorter at the moment, but yeah, it was a bit of a thing, and I just thought we never were going to invest hours in that venture. We just thought we'll just go and have a look. It'd give you a good chance to see the thermals and chat about some stuff. So yeah, it was pretty cool to actually rock up, and I probably said, holy shit, there's a dog. Because while it's a property that I specifically go there to chase dogs, I didn't think we'd walk straight in and just go, there's a dog.
Yeah.
So, then we ran the dog calls, and same thing again.
Got a bit more interest.
Got a little bit more interested, and then we heard another.
Someone responded up the valley.
Something responded further up the valley. Nothing came out up there, and the animal that we were looking at just sort of mooched its way off and went through the fence into the neighbours. But
as you said, at this time of year, though, it's more of a locked together with a partner and it's a
funny time to shoot dogs, unless you can kind of pattern them or know where they come through, which that was a pretty good path that one was on. So I'd say I'll have a discussion with the property owner tomorrow, and we might have to plan another venture out there, and I'd say that'll be a sit and wait for it to pass through.
Yeah, I look forward to that news.
I'll have to keep you posted.
Please do. Righto, well, we'll say good night again.
Good night.
Thanks for being around.
Thanks.
And enjoyed it. Everyone, thanks for listening and watching. See you next time.
Next time on Accurate Hunts.
We have Morgan with us, Morgan Potter, coming from Tanzania. Welcome to the show, Morgan.
Thanks very much for having me on.
When you find some poachers, it's not that hard sometimes to turn them into good employees.
Yeah, it definitely isn't. The notion that phototourism is somehow just inherently lower impact than hunting, I think is a flawed one.